Hi everyone, and welcome to this month's Craft Collab event. For this month, we are sponsored by Kitchen Sink Stamps. And if you're not familiar with them, they are a stamp company that sells realistic multi-step or multi-layer clear stamps. For my project today, I'm using this multi-step Fresh as a Daisy stamp set that they've generously sent to me. This hop also includes a giveaway for a $25 gift certificate to Kitchen Sink Stamps, and I will have all of that information linked down below. Now let's get into my project. So the best way to layer images in a stamp layering set is with a stamping tool like the Misty. However, you can still achieve some amazing results with an acrylic block. It just happens to be easier with a stamping tool like the Misty. For my card today, I'm going to be stamping out several sets in different colors, so I can move pretty quickly with the Misty. For the sake of time in this video, I'm only going to be sharing the way I stamped out one of the images, but just know that once I aligned the first layer, I did all of the stamping and then moved on to the next layer. The first, most solid layer I stamp in the lightest shade, and I happen to double stamp this one, and then I can move on to each successive layer with a darker shade each time. Now all I'm doing is rotating my cardstock, and my stamp is still perfectly aligned to work on the next shade. So one of the unique things about Kitchen Sink Stamps is that all of the stamps comes with this color ID film, and don't be like me and not read the information about it before you stick your stamp onto the top of the film. The color ID film is a laser printed film on top of an acetate sheet on one side, and if you happen to place your stamp on top of that film, you can take a bit of that film off like you see in that top corner of my sheet. So the way I went around that is to place an acetate sheet on top of that film, and then I can align my next layer to the image that I had previously stamped. You can also easily align these stamps just by eyeballing it, but it is nice to have that color film. What's also nice about the kitchen stamps is that everything is labeled, and it takes the guesswork out of figuring out what is the next layer to stamp. At this point, I am stamping out my fourth layer in the shade of pink before moving on to stamping out the centers layer, which there are two. And I think these are just so gorgeous. They're so realistic looking. The color ID film also shows color suggestions, but I kind of went with my own, and I will have a list of all of the colors that I used in creating my card over on my blog, which I will link to down below. I will also have some up-close photos on my blog in case you're interested in checking that out. Once I had all of my images stamped out and I fussy cut them out, I kind of set them off to the side to work on the background. And I really felt that the background should be subtle so that the entire focus is on the daisies. So I decided to use a cloud stencil. This is a cloud stencil by MFT, and I'm adding Tumble Glass Distress ink, and I'm just inking that stencil, turning it each time I move down onto a piece of Bristol Smooth cardstock with my blender brush. I'm using a Hero Arts postage stamp infinity rectangle die to die cut that stenciled panel. And then I've also brought in a piece of snow cone cardstock by MFD, which I've die cut with a Hero Arts rectangle infinity die. Just slightly smaller than the postage stamp panel. At this point, I'm ready to start adhering my components to my card base. I have a white card base that I'm adhering the snow cone panel down to with a little bit of liquid adhesive. And then I will take the stenciled background piece and I will add some fun foam to that and pop that up. Once I have that panel in place, I will take all of my daisies that I fussy cut out and I'm just going to start arranging them on the front of the card the way I think it will look good. And the look that I was going for was kind of as if you were holding a bouquet of daisies and you looked on top of them. So that's kind of how I'm arranging these flowers. The bottommost layer of the daisies I've added directly down onto that stencil panel with liquid adhesive. And then I've popped up the inner pieces onto lots and lots of little foam squares for added dimension. So here I'm going to work on the sentiment. So part of the sentiment is going to be stamped out from a stamp by Gertz Designer Stamps. And I have a piece of black cardstock that I've treated with anti-static powder. And then I will place my stamp on an acrylic block and just using a little bit of Scotch tape, I'm going to mask off the part of the stamp that I don't want to include. I am inking up my sentiment with Versamark ink, and then I can remove my piece of Scotch tape and stamp that down onto my cardstock. Now I didn't clean my stamp beforehand, so I just had a little bit of that residue transfer over, which I just rubbed away with my finger. Then I can add my white embossing powder and heat set that with my heat tool. To complete my sentiment, I used a die cut by Fawn, and I cut the scripty word sweet several times out of black cardstock. Then to adhere all of those together, the easiest way I found is to use the negative space of that die cut and then add my first layer in, place my adhesive, and then make sure the next layer fits snug into the negative space of that cardstock. And I'll just continue doing that over and over again until I have a nice and thick die cut for my card. Okay, so here's kind of what my card looks like. I have my sentiment strip that I'm trimming down, and I'm arranging that in the center of my card. I do use a little bit of foam or fun foam to add some dimension to this little strip, and then I can adhere that down with a little bit of liquid adhesive. And then I will directly adhere that die cut underneath the sentiment strip with a little bit of liquid adhesive. For a couple of final touches, I'm going to pull out the clear drops by Studio Katya, and I will adhere those down to my card. And then I will also go over all of the centers of the flowers with Glossy Accents by Ranger. And that will complete my card. So I just wanted to remind you that this hop is so generously sponsored by Kitchen Sink Stamps, who is providing for a chance to win a $25 gift certificate through the Rafflecopter link down below. Also, the next participant in the hop is linked down below, and I hope you continue on to be inspired by the rest of the participants. As always, I will have a link to all of the supplies that I used in this video down below, as well as on my blog, in addition to some close-up photos of my final project. Thank you so much for stopping by, and I will see you next time.